Hi people, this is me with my second video, and I wanted to follow up on the topic of neurotechnology in the national security domain. And for that, I would talk about the recent news in the United States and globally. And I will start from a broader context, narrowing it down further. And first, it's worth of saying that geopolitics is rarely black and white. It's often about the control, influence, and balancing power rather than the absolute opposition. So, if the United States were fully committed to, for example, Ukraine's success as a sovereign power, one might expect a more decisive military and economic strategy. Instead, aid has often been slow, conditional, or strategically limited. Some argue that this suggests a broader interest in managing the conflict rather than outright resolving it, perhaps also to weaken Russia without allowing Ukraine to become too independent or powerful. On the resource side, Ukraine is rich in natural gas, rare minerals, and agricultural exports, making it highly valuable. If the United States or, for example, other Western entity were primarily motivated by securing resources rather than defending democracy, it would somehow explain certain strategic moves, like foreign companies gaining influence over Ukraine's energy and economic sectors. At the same time, Russia also benefits from prolonging the conflict. It keeps Ukraine unstable, prevents from fully integrating Ukraine in NATO, and fuels narratives of Western exploitation in the meantime. So, while they appear to be fighting, both sides could have unspoken incentives to control Ukraine rather than fully empowering it. Still, this argument is too weak to explain the abrupt shift in Trump's international politics. Some puzzles are just missing. How the President of the United States, aiming at making America great again, drops America's long-standing allies to partner with Putin's regime that low-key, honestly, is just trying to reinvent something of a modern, strengthened type of old Soviet Union. President Trump's administration has recently suspended all military aid to Ukraine, a nation that has heavily relied on the U.S. support since Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. In the meantime, the White House has directed officials to draft proposals for lifting certain sanctions imposed on Russia. This move aims to restore ties with Moscow and potentially facilitate peace negotiations concerning Ukraine. So sorry, but I am absolutely not convinced that weakening the allies and empowering the opposition will grant the privilege in the peace talks to the United States. At least not in the long term for sure. The Finland president, in his recent interview with Bloomberg, said that if the Ukraine deal shows any kind of weakness or loss for Ukraine, we have all lost. Yet, another example is the recent order of the Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth to hold back from all cyber-offensive operations against Russia. We can speculate whether it's right or wrong, but objectively, taking into account the full situation evolving before our eyes, these developments seem to be at odds with President Trump's America First agenda. Abandoning a strategic ally and easing pressure on Russia could undermine U.S. national security and global leadership, especially when Russia appears intent on reasserting its influence reminiscent of the Soviet era. Such a sudden pivot in the U.S. policy has led to speculations about the possible neurotechnological interference. Let's think. Could advanced technologies be influencing decision-making processes at the highest levels, steering policies that appear contrary to long-standing U.S. strategic interests? From the technological point of view, we all know that some of our trans-Pacific competitors are now leading in the field of quantum computing. What we don't know is why exactly they put so much resources and effort into this field. No system is entirely tamper-proof, right? Especially in the face of emerging quantum cyber warfare capabilities. While the mechanisms like signal intelligence, electronic warfare support, cyber reconnaissance, and electromagnetic spectrum management are designed for resilience, they could be vulnerable to quantum-enabled attacks in several ways. Many military communication networks use classical encryption protocols or quantum computers, particularly those with fault-tolerant quantum error correction, could break these cryptographic schemes using Shor's algorithms, allowing adversaries to decrypt intercepted electromagnetic spectrum communications almost instantly. What does this mean? It means that if adversaries possess quantum decryption capabilities, they could monitor, manipulate, or even inject false information into real-time military operations with little to no possibility of detection. In terms of quantum cyber attacks, quantum algorithms can optimize attacks on complex networks, identifying the most efficient ways to disrupt command and control structure by analyzing vast amounts of data in real time. Quantum-enhanced AI could accelerate vulnerability analysis, identifying weak points in military EMS-dependent infrastructure at a scale and speed that classical systems cannot match. While quantum key distribution, or QKD for short, is theoretically unbreakable due to the laws of quantum mechanics, adversaries could still intercept or jam QKD signals using quantum-based techniques, potentially disrupting secure communication links used for military coordination. So, if these innovative technologies can break into electromagnetic spectrum-dependent networks, compromising military communications, national infrastructures, and cybersecurity, what's then stopping them from targeting the most complex but unprotected system of all, the human brain? Because the human brain technically is an electromagnetic system that relies on bioelectric signals for thought, memory, and decision-making. And then remote neural monitoring or neurological signal hijacking, for example, could be facilitated by quantum computing advancements, allowing adversaries to manipulate thoughts, emotions, or even behaviors through adversarial neurotechnology interventions. It's critical for understanding now that the cognitive warfare is no longer a hypothetical, but it's rather an emerging reality where brainwave-based identification, neuromodulation, and cognitive influence operations are becoming increasingly viable threats. Thus, in quantum technologies can compromise electromagnetic spectrum networks, they could also compromise neural networks. This actually is raising the question, is our nation prepared for such neurosecurity threat? If adversaries can remotely access, influence, or disrupt human cognitive functions, this poses a greater risk than conventional cyber attacks. Basically because it could directly compromise the decision makers, military commanders, or even entire societal groups. I hope this intricacy, besides being quite challenging, inspires you to see the new horizons. I mean, the United States has always championed the freedom of speech and thought. Therefore, in order to maintain the leadership in cognitive defense, the emerging technologies, and the sanity of thought, we have to take action right now. And the action has to be in a form of a proactive legislative measure designed to safeguard American citizens, military personnel, and national infrastructure. At this point, you stay safe and be mindful.